Alrighty, let's look at the last argument form we're going to explore in this thought primer. I bet you're glad to hear that. Okay, here's an argument. If it is snowing, then the mail will be late. The mail is late, therefore it is snowing. Okay, so the question for us is this. Let's assume that the two premise statements are true. Can we imagine any set of circumstances in which the conclusion could be false? And with this argument, it seems pretty easy to imagine a set of circumstances that would cause the conclusion statement to be false even while we're accepting the premise statements as true. Okay, so we believe, yeah, if it's snowing, the mail will be late, and the mail is late today. But maybe that's because the mail carrier got distracted by the nice sunny day and decided to stop at the beach and have lunch, have a snack. And in that case, the mail's not here on time because the mail carrier is kicking it at the beach. But if it were snowing, the mail would be late. That's true. Okay, but it's not true that it's snowing. Okay, now what's happening here is something similar that's happening in our other statements. We have this statement, the mail will be late, being asserted in the second premise and also appearing as the consequent, as the thing that follows then in our first premise. And we know from our discussion of sufficient and necessary conditions that the conditions described by the statement on the right-hand side of the horseshoe, they are necessarily true in order for the set of conditions described on the left-hand side of the horseshoe to be true. It's necessary for them to be true in order for the conditions on the left-hand side to be true. But they're not sufficient. And what we mean by that is, even if the conditions described on the right-hand side of the horseshoe, even if those are true, that is not sufficient for us to draw the conclusion that what appears on the left-hand side of the horseshoe. And we can see this reflected in our truth table for conditional statements on line 3, where we have this statement here on the right-hand side of the horseshoe true, and the statement over here is false, okay? So this is another invalid form of argument. Anytime we try to affirm the consequent, and the consequent is the statement that appears on the right-hand side of a horseshoe, in this case Q. Anytime we try to do that with another premise to draw a conclusion about the antecedent or the thing that appears on the left-hand side of the horseshoe, we've committed a logical fallacy. We have an invalid, unreliable argument. Okay, so any argument with this form is an affirming the consequent in AC. It's invalid, and just like with the other arguments, it doesn't matter what the order of the premises are. What matters is what the relationship between those premises are. How are they interacting with one another? If one of those premises is affirming that the consequent of a conditional statement is true, we've affirmed the consequent, we've committed a logical fallacy, and we have an invalid argument.